In this video, I'm going to show you how to thread your machine and wind a bobbin. Okay, first of all, this is your bobbin winder. This is your stitch length. These are your different stitches. This is your tension, how tight you want your stitches to be, your thread guide, and you'll see numbers on your machine and thread arrows. The dash ones are for your bobbin, and the solid lines are for threading your machine. This is your reverse button, so this is what you're going to use when you start a stitch length, a length of stitches, and how you're going to end it. And you can see down here that the feed dogs move when you press that. So this is your thread cutter, which is nice and handy. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is put the thread on the spool pin, and because it's a horizontal pin, you're going to need a thread cap, and mine is too big for mine, so I'll have this additional one. Now mine is actually too big even for the spool, but I don't know where my other 3 or 4 are because I just moved, so this is how I use it. And excuse the video recording, I'm doing this one-handed. So you're going to take it through your thread guide. When you thread your machine, make sure that your presser feet, or not your pressure feet are up. You'll see that. Pull it up because there's tension discs in here and you want them open so the thread will go through. So follow the solid lines. Sorry about the videos. And you're going to go down here and come back up. Go to the thread uptake lever right here. Go back down. And then down here, there's another guide that you're going to put the thread behind and then thread your needle. Okay, now we're going to wind the bobbin. So you put your thread in place with the cap, and you're going to follow these lines, which is through the thread guide. And you can see here, it says come this way. So you're going to come this way, and then go around, and then over here. And what you're going to do is take the end of that thread and you're going to put it through here, up through one of those holes. So now it's through one of the holes. You can see that there. There we go. Now we're going to push this over. We're going to press the pedal, and when you do, hang on to the tail end of that thread or else it'll come out. And when you have enough thread under there to hold that in place, you can go ahead and cut it. When you get enough on there, or if you want to fill it up, you will just keep going, and when it gets to a certain point, depending on how this thing is turned, it'll just push it back by itself and it'll be done. But for this purpose only, I'm going to stop now. And then you just clip the threads. Okay, when placing your bobbin in your machine, you want to make sure that your thread comes off over the top to the right. And then when you put it in, so it's going to come off the top to the right, you put it in, you slide it through that little crevice or whatever you want to call it, and pull it over to this little area here. Make sure you can see that correctly. And then when you go to put it in your machine, pull this out, and there are little teeth that lock that in to hold it secure until you get it in there. On my machine, this little finger here needs to be pointing up. Once you put it in there, you push that closed and it's locked in. Now that your machine is threaded and your bobbin is in place, what you need to do is, I've got the needle thread in my hand. I'm going to turn that hand wheel towards me until the needle goes down. You'll see the little thread go around and capture that bobbin thread. can see it go across. And then when your needle comes back up, you pull this, and then you'll have the bobbin thread on the top. Then you just put it to the back, close it up, and you're ready to sew. Sometimes when you're working, you are going to have some sewing issues where thread bunches up underneath the project that you're working on. And what I do when this happens, the first thing I do is I check the uptake lever, because sometimes the thread can come off of that. If that's in place, then I check my bobbin and I make sure that the thread is where it's supposed to be, and that's where it's supposed to be, right there. Sometimes it'll slip out and you'll see the thread come out of this area, and it just is really loose and it doesn't have the tension it needs from this, and then you end up having problems. If that's good, then I would check my needle. If you're using woven fabrics, you need to be using a sharp needle. If you're using stretchy fabrics, you need a ballpoint needle. And you need to make sure that those are correct, because if not, you're gonna have some problems. And if that's okay, then I just kind of run my finger down my needle, and if there's an ever so slight little scratching on your skin, not enough to really like feel a bend in the needle, but just that slight little scratch, change your needle, because that right there will wreak havoc on your sewing job. All it needs is one little tiny burr to catch that thread, and it just messes everything up. Now, there are times when I'm sewing, I'll be sewing and then I'll take that off and then sew another area, and my needle all of a sudden doesn't want to come up out of the throat plate. And that happened just like last week, and I was thinking, oh, I just killed another machine, because I'll use mine until they die. And come to find out what it was my bobbin winder got pushed over, and your needle won't work. It won't go up and down. It just kind of jams. So make sure that's over. Make sure the thread's in your uptake lever. Make sure you got the correct needle. Make sure it's not damaged. Make sure your bobbin thread is where it's supposed to be in your bobbin. And I hope I didn't forget anything. And when you're sewing and you run across a problem, run through the checklist, and hopefully one of those things will be the problem. If not, I would recommend taking it to a sewing and vac shop and just having the whole thing, looked over. And also be sure to keep your machine clean. In here, it's pretty clean right now. But when you do a lot of sewing, you can collect a lot of dust, a lot of fibers in there, and that'll really mess your machine up. So what I do is I take a Q-tip and I'll just run it through there and get all that lint and stuff out, and just makes a world of difference. So make sure your machine is clean. As I talk about a dirty machine, got that stuff there. But make sure the workings are, when you get dust, don't blow it inside your machine here. What I do is I get pipe cleaners and I'll twist it into like a loop, and I'll just run it in there, and it catches all kinds of lint and fibers, and it's crazy. Looks like I might need to do it again pretty soon. But yes, lint is not your friend. So make sure you keep your machine clean, take care of your equipment, and lots of years of sewing happiness to you all. Thank you. Bye.